My name is Kelsey Price, and LaRosha Williams was my best friend for 19 years, my chosen sister, the person I called first for everything. Celebrations, emergencies, 3 a.m. panic attacks, the works. She was also, I eventually discovered, the most consistent source of damage in my entire adult life. The worst betrayals don't come from enemies. They come from the person who knows every password, every fear, every version of you that you've never shown anyone else. LaRosha knew all of mine. Before we dive in deep, we'd love for you to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the sizzling hot revenge stories we constantly post here. Thank you for your compliance. Let's head back. LaRosha and I met at 7 years old. 3rd grade, Mrs. Patterson's class, assigned seeds that put us side by side for an entire school year. By Christmas, we were inseparable, the kind of childhood friendship that feels like destiny, like the universe deliberately arranged the seating chart. As kids, the signs were microscopic, easy to miss, easier to excuse. LaRosha had a gift for competition disguised as support. When I won the 3rd grade art competition, a painting of my grandmother's garden that Mrs. Patterson had entered on my behalf, LaRosha hugged me tight and whispered, "I'm so proud of you, Kels. I just think mine was a little more detailed, but the judges probably wanted something simpler." 7 years old. That was 7 years old. When I got a birthday party and she didn't that same month, her birthday was in December, mine in October, she spent the entire party subtly redirecting attention to herself, suggesting games I was bad at, mentioning to other kids that my mom had bought the cake from a store, small, surgical, imperceptible to adults. I noticed, said nothing. She was my best friend. The competition sharpened into something with real consequences as teenagers. At 15, I developed a serious crush on a boy named Deshaun. He was a quiet but funny lad, sat behind me in English class. I told LaRosha everything, the way you tell your best friend everything, because that's the entire point. 2 weeks later, I found that LaRosha and Deshaun were secretly dating. She told me she hadn't known I liked him that seriously. I described planning our wedding to her in detail. I swallowed it. Shrugged it off, 'cause she was my best friend. At 17, I wrote a personal essay for a young writers competition, deeply personal, about my grandmother's death the previous year, the grief I was still navigating. I shared it with LaRosha for feedback before submission. I didn't place in the competition, 'cause she said it wasn't all that. Months later, a mutual friend sent me a link, a blog under a name I didn't recognize, containing an essay. The structure, the specific memories, the metaphors I'd spent weeks crafting, rearranged just enough to avoid exact duplication. When I confronted LaRosha, she cried, said she'd been inspired by our conversation about grief and hadn't realized how similar it had come out, said she'd take it down. She took it down. But I found another version of it uploaded 3 months later under a different pseudonym. I said nothing, 'cause she was my best friend. What would you have done at this point if it were you? Tell us in the comments. LaRosha found bigger territory when we became adults. At 24, I launched a small natural hair care business. 4 products, an Etsy store, genuine passion behind every formulation. LaRosha was my loudest cheerleader. Attended my first pop-up market, helped me pack orders in my kitchen, posted about it on her social media. 18 months later, she launched her own hair care line. Not similar, but identical. Same product categories, same target demographic, same brand aesthetic I'd spent months developing. She changed the name and the packaging colors. I was so mad when I saw it. Then I called her, voice shaking, genuinely in shock and disbelief, couldn't believing what I was seeing, that she would do this to me. Again. But she was calm. "Kels, the natural hair market is huge. There's room for everyone. I've always been interested in beauty. You know that." LaRosha, you knew nothing and had no interest in beauty until I came up with mine. How could you do this to me? The product lineup is identical. Similar, not identical. There are only so many products you can make for natural hair. I could sense the nonchalance in her voice. For God's sakes, what are you saying, LaRocia? You're supposed to be my best friend. You packed my orders in my kitchen. You know my formulations, I said, still in disbelief. Yo, chill. I think you're letting jealousy see things. It's not that serious. I sat with that word, jealousy. It hit different coming from the person who had been taking from me since we were kids. Something finally, completely lit the fire in me. I'm ready to let her burn. I spent 90 days building my response. First, intellectual property. I had time-stamped product development files, original formula documentation, supplier receipts predating LaRocha's launch by 14 months. My attorney sent a formal cease and desist within 30 days. LaRocha's attorney responded dismissively. Standard pushback. I expected that. They expected me to fold. They didn't know what else I'd been building. I contacted the Young Writers Organization from 2009, explained the situation, provided documentation of both uploaded versions of my essay with timestamps. They had records of LaRocha's registration as a non-placing entrant that year. The evidence was clear enough that they issued a formal statement about the plagiarism through their current platform. Then I found Deshawn. We'd stayed loosely connected on social media over the years. Over coffee, I told him what I'd never told anyone, what LaRocia had known about my feelings before they started dating. He was quiet for a long time. She told me you'd said you weren't interested in me, that you'd told her I wasn't really your type. We looked at each other across the table. She said that to both of us, I said. He nodded slowly. Deshawn wasn't a weapon, but he was a witness. And when I built the complete picture, the essay, the business, the childhood patterns, the Deshawn situation, and many other crazy things she did that I overlooked, into a detailed account that I published on my brand platform under the title, Why I'm Talking About Business Ethics Today, he agreed to be quoted. The post didn't mention LaRocia by name. It didn't need to. Our mutual network did the identification within 48 hours. Her brand partnership suspended pending review. Her growing platform on social media lost a third of its following in a week, and she got dragged. The cease and desist settled quietly, in my favor, 30 days later. She texted me on a Sunday evening. I hope you're happy now, Kelsey. You've destroyed everything I worked so hard to build. I looked at that message for a really long time. I couldn't believe how entitled, self-absorbed, and myopic she is. So disappointed in myself for putting up with all her baggage for 19 years. Then I typed back 4 words. Rot in hell, thief. My hair care line is in 43 stores nationally now. I don't have a best friend anymore in the way I once understood the word. And I'm good. I have something LaRocia never gave me in 19 years of friendship. I have peace. And I have my grandmother's essay, published properly, finally, in a literary journal last spring, under my name. Kelsey Price. The one it always belonged to. Kindly leave a comment and tell us your thoughts about this revenge story. Do you think she should have reacted differently towards her best friend? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the juicy revenge stories we've got lined up for you. See you on our next post.